By 1970, the muscle car wars had been escalating for nearly a decade. General Motors had the 454 LS6 Chevelle, Ford had the Boss 429 and the 428 Cobra Jet. Pontiac had the Ram Air 4. Each year, somebody raised compression, added cam, or bolted on more carburation. It was an arms race conducted in cubic inches and quarter-mile times, but Chrysler had been holding a card the others couldn't quite match. The 426 Hemi. It had dominated NASCAR in 1964. It had forced rule changes. It had made a name for itself on drag strips from Pomona to Englishtown. And in 1970, Plymouth finally put that engine in the right car, the new E-body Cuda. The engineering wasn't the problem. The insurance bill was. This is the story of the 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda. What made the engine genuinely different, what the insurance industry did in response, and why just 666 cars now trade hands for $500,000 or more. Before we go further, here's the real-world question. If you were buying in 1970 and the insurance premium on a Hemi was more than most people could reasonably absorb, what would you have ordered instead? A 440 six-pack? A 340 small block? Or would you have written the check anyway? The engine. What made the Hemi different? To understand why insurers reacted the way they did, you have to understand what the 436 Hemi actually was. Its origins trace back to early 1963, when Chrysler engineers were tasked with building an engine capable of winning the Daytona 500. They had one target date, February 23, 1964. On race day, Hemi-powered cars finished first, second, third, and fifth. Richard Petty won. NASCAR banned the engine for 1965 unless Chrysler produced a street version. So Chrysler did. The street Hemi debuted in 1966. And unlike many homologation engines, it wasn't a cosmetic adaptation. It retained the forged steel crankshaft, forged rods, and heavy-duty bottom end of the race motor. Compression was lowered from 12 at 5.1 in race trim to 10.25.1 for pump premium fuel. Cam timing was softened slightly for drivability. Induction changed from a cross-ram racing manifold to a dual inline Carter aft setup. 2 4-barrels flowing a combined 1,250 CFM. But the defining feature remained the cylinder heads. Hemi wasn't marketing language. The hemispherical combustion chamber allowed large valves, 2.25-inch intake, and 1.94-inch exhaust, positioned opposite each other at 58.5 degrees. That layout enabled efficient airflow and centralized spark plug placement, improving flame propagation. The trade-off? Size and weight. At roughly 843 pounds dry, the Hemi earned its nickname, the Elephant Motor. Official output was rated at 425 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque. Interestingly, Chrysler published the same rating for both the race and street versions. Despite meaningful differences in compression and camshaft design, many enthusiasts believe the street Hemi's real output exceeded the conservative 425 figure. Here's the debate. Was Chrysler underrating the engine to avoid drawing more attention from insurers? Or were those numbers simply corporate caution? The right car, the 1970 Cuda. For 1970, Plymouth finally had a body worthy of the engine. The new E-body platform was designed with big block power in mind. Unlike Ford's Boss 429 Mustang, which required shock tower modifications, the Hemi fit the Cuda's engine bay without structural compromise. Every Hemi Cuda came with the shaker hood scoop. It wasn't decorative. It was bolted directly to the air cleaner and protruded through the hood. Under acceleration, you could see it move with engine torque. Transmission options mattered. The 4-speed used Chrysler's new process A833 with a Hurst pistol grip. Mechanical, deliberate, demanding. The automatic was the Torque Flight 727, durable and, in many period tests, quicker down the strip. That surprises some people, but the automatic eliminated driver inconsistency and clutch slip. With torque management handled hydraulically, many 727 equipped cars posted slightly better quarter-mile times than their 4-speed counterparts. Rear axles reflected the torque involved. Manual cars received the Dana 60, a necessary upgrade for durability under shock loads. Performance numbers? 0, 60 mph in about 5.8 seconds. quarter mile in roughly 14.1 seconds at 103 mph. Those were elite numbers for 1970. One honest caveat: handling wasn't the car's strength. With the heavy Hemi up front, period road tests noted front-end weight bias and moderate cornering limits. The car was calibrated for straight-line dominance, not road course finesse. Colors completed the statement: plum crazy, tor red, vitamin C lemon twist. The high-impact palette wasn't subtle. It didn't need to be. The insurance war. By late 1969, insurance companies had started running the numbers. Claims data showed that high-powered cars, especially in the hands of younger drivers, produced disproportionate accident costs. In 1970, Nationwide and other insurers introduced steep surcharges for high-performance classifications. The result was immediate. In some markets, annual insurance premiums for a Hemi Cuda approached $8,800. For comparison, a similarly quick Chevelle SS might cost closer to $500 per year. The difference, more than $12,100 annually, was significant when the car's base price hovered under $3,000. And the Hemi option itself cost nearly $900. Add track pack, wheels, and basic options, and you were easily past $5,000 before insurance. If you were 22 years old, the premium could exceed your rent. So here's the question that still divides enthusiasts. Were insurers making a rational actuarial decision based on real risk, or were they applying financial pressure that regulators hadn't yet legislated? Either way, the effect was measurable. Only 666 Hemi Cudas were sold in 1970, 652 hardtops, and 14 convertibles. That number wasn't a production cap. It was what the market absorbed once insurance entered the equation. The collapse. The contraction was swift. In 1971, Hemi Cuda production fell to 115 units, including just 7 convertibles. By 1972, the Hemi option was gone entirely. Insurance pressure was one blade of the scissors. The other was emissions regulation. Compression ratios would soon fall. Leaded fuel would disappear. Compliance costs on a low-volume, hand-assembled engine like the Hemi made the economics untenable. Chrysler didn't fight it. The Barracuda itself would disappear after 1974. What remained were 666 1970 cars and a handful from 1971. Legacy. Today, those 666 cars are among the most documented collector vehicles in the American market. Authentication matters. Galen Govier documentation and Chrysler registry records are baseline requirements because the values involved demand precision. Market values reflect rarity and narrative. Well-documented 1970 hardtops regularly trade between $400,000 and $700,000, depending on color, transmission, and provenance. Convertibles are in a different category entirely, with examples surpassing $2 million at major auctions. But the legacy isn't just about money. The Hemi Cuda didn't fade because buyers lost interest. It didn't disappear because it was technologically obsolete. It was squeezed out by insurance mathematics, emissions compliance, and economic reality. For men who lived through that transition, it represented something more than a car. It marked the moment when horsepower stopped being the only deciding factor. Here's the final question. If you could own one 1970 Hemi Cuda today, any color, any configuration, would you drive it, show it, or preserve it exactly as it left the factory? 666 cars, built for one model year, remembered because they were both fast and rare, and because the forces that ended them tell you something real about what was changing in America in 1970. Next time, we're going to the other side of that same era, to a car built under corporate radar, delivered quietly, and gone before the insurance industry even noticed.